Welcome to the Unlock Podcast, an innovative approach for human development. My name is Amanda, and today I am joined by Macarena Vergara, one of our very own unlockers, and a woman who teaches by being. Macarena, can you briefly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure, Amanda, lovely to be with you today. My name is Macarena Vergara. I am Chilean Spanish, and I'm the head of learning and development for the work that we do at Unlock in our humanitarian and development sector. Lovely to be with you today.
Lovely to have you. So today we're going to cover a topic that really affects every single organization and every single human that is part of any organization. So we're going to talk about women in leadership. Let's start by addressing the main challenges that women face when we're talking about women in leadership.
I love that question, Amanda. We've been doing quite a lot of work in that, and it's how can I start? Really, women deal every day with the effects of what they call second generation bias, which is where there is systemic discrimination and also bias, be it unconscious or not, that limits women from rising to higher ranks of leadership, or actually from blooming wherever they are, right? So we see few role models that women have in executive levels of leadership. We see a lot of gendered career paths, which is where women end up doing a lot of the work that is considered more women types of work, like administration, support functions. We also see traditional images of leadership that are accepted and rewarded in most organizations that are often associated with what people see as male traits, right? Being hard, directive, authoritative, no nonsense, results focused, driven by the mission. While those traits that are generally associated with women, like maintaining relationships, being conciliatory, collaborative, even more horizontal, are not necessarily valued in organizations. We also see women, for example, held to higher standards or rewarded less or punished more if they make mistakes, for example, and that doesn't contribute to their inner narratives, which women struggle a lot with. You know, women have the sense that they can't fail or that they're judged constantly, much more so than men. And we also see women, for example, they're not part of networks where information is garnered, networks where support is given out, right? They're not purposely engaging or seeking out these networks because networking is a difficult topic for women leaders to talk about, right? Many women are hesitant to promote themselves. We also see what they call the double bind, right? That women are either competent or they're liked, but they can't be both. And of course, we see, with the pandemic, a much, much heavier burden that has fallen on women, having to juggle their personal lives as well as their professional lives. So all of these things, Amanda, they really pose big, big challenges for women in leadership today.
Thank you so much for your answer and for making visible all of these challenges that sometimes we often don't see, especially because we think they don't affect us directly or because, it's not our responsibility or I'm not the one going through them. So this connects with the next question. So what would be the best way we could support, women in leadership in a system or in a society more so that is not really built for women to be enabled to move forward?
Well, that's $1 million question, right? But we're trying and we're forging ways ahead. And one thing is for sure that we need to start with creating spaces for women to look at themselves, right? We begin by transforming the self of the woman. We apply innovative science-based approaches to support women in finding their visions of leadership, finding their own sense of purpose, their own why linked to their own values, and finding a clear identity that they can start mapping out as part of their career strategy. We need to strengthen how women talk to themselves internally, how women position themselves in organizations, their leadership competencies, so that they can then step out and speak up, right? And command those spaces in which they're active. And women then slowly start changing the narratives that they've been conditioned by and that they've been nurturing, and the system has been also nurturing until now, right? And they start feeling entitled to taking up those spaces. And they start shifting the balance of the interactions at home and of course at work, and where their peers, their supervisors and their teams, they change how they present themselves, how they occupy their leadership and how they command respect. They can also learn the language of powerful communication by taking ownership of what is theirs and crafting agency and confidence in establishing those communication lines without losing relationships, because it's very important to be able to maintain those relationships, right? And we do offer this by creating holistic and integrated approaches that offer women and also men different ways of including themselves according to their needs, their circumstances, their preferences. For example, we have thematic workshops that we facilitate where we explore big themes and we provide spaces to understand what is going on in our context and in our lived experiences. And in these spaces, of course, Amanda, the role of men is fundamental. Yeah, we also need men to understand the context in which they have generally been favored, but not everyone at all is living that privilege at all in the same way. So we need to create those spaces for those nuances to come to life, right? And we also create smaller spaces where thinking is translated to agency and there's a safety and peer support and, you know, encouragement to bring these topics to reality. And of course, at Unlock, we were originally in an individual coaching, executive coaching provider, and coaching is a fundamental and life-changing space because there you are mirrored, there you are exploring, and you make space for reflection and purposefully look at whatever might be limiting you in life. And that is a fundamental addition to any initiative that targets women in leadership.
Thank you so much, Macarena, for this insightful answer. And thank you for bringing up men in the conversation, because this is very well connected to what I'm about to say, because we often don't recognize that this is everyone's work, everyone's responsibility. So I've seen that in most leadership development interventions, it's the woman's responsibility to be the ones to, you know, let go of these biases, both internally and externally. They're the ones that are supposed to change their own narrative without being aware that it's everyone that's actually involved in this responsibility. So where exactly is the system in all of these?
That is a beautiful question, Amanda, and that is the crux of the dilemma that we always find ourselves in, right? It is a beautiful question because it is so pertinent. It is fundamental, of course, to craft leadership development interventions that give women and men the tools to understand themselves and their own leadership, right? And that's for sure, it's a given. But it's important to incorporate women's voices also and men's voices throughout the intervention. So we co-create in transparency with them throughout. So then by doing this, they are also belonging themselves to the system. They are being part of the organic production of the solution, right? So what we've seen is that the best programs that support women in leadership are those that are backed and driven also by the organization's will for their success and credibility. You have to have genuine interest and involvement from the top, not just the top leaders, but the middle leaders, the supervisors of the women who go through programs, their peers. Anything else really, Amanda, is lip service and is not sustainable. It doesn't change the system. Now, we need to be given the space to share these common experiences, right? To share information, to mirror each other as women, and of course, receive support. And fundamentally, we need to be matched in our growth and expansion by a system that also makes space for us to be those bigger versions of ourselves that we are, right? So women who undergo programs with us, they realize that they are the system, that also top leadership can be brought to the table. They can develop the confidence and the tools to be able to bring their message properly, their analysis into their context, and really be equal agents at the table to forge ways ahead and open doors for dialogue and open door for commitment to action. And when women grow in this way, the system does listen and the doors are open, and it really is up to us to cross that threshold and create the future of organizations this way. It's no longer a them and us. We have to be able to grow, to involve ourselves, but the them has to be responsive. I hope I've done justice to your question, Amanda.
Yeah, well, very much, Macarena. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, well, with all of us. And loved how you say we have to co-create, because that means it's collaborative and everyone's job. That is actually something that we need to be aware that we're all part of it in order to move forward. So thank you so much for this insightful answer regarding the involvement of everyone within an organization and within a system more so, which is bigger and larger than any organization.
That's it.
So thank you so much for all this information that I hope we did justice to our listeners and they actually get a thing or two that they can, take on for their day-to-day lives. Would you like to add something more regarding women in leadership?
Well, I really love the word inclusion. You see, we have diversity. We work in diverse teams. We work across the world with all sorts of walks of life and lived experience, but inclusion is a verb for us. It's not necessarily just a noun. In every single intervention, in every single program, we have to practice inclusion in action. And that starts by bringing those voices purposefully into the space and then doing something with that space, because the space changes when you actually practice inclusion. That's what I wanted to leave you with. I hope it's useful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being with us today, Macarena, and thank you so much for being a woman who teaches by being, and actually enables people to be the best version of themselves that they can be, especially the work that you do with women, that is very remarkable.
Thank you.
So thank you for being with us today, and stay tuned as we continue to unlock human potential.
It's a pleasure. Bye.